this week is entirely black. I'm like, how are you?
So us commissioners have been pushed to the.
You're really going to read it that way versus I want to see?
I'll switch sheets with you any day of the week.
Let's sit over here with staff.
I want to be able to see you.
Okay.
A collegial discussion. We all discussed this before you got here. If you'd been here earlier, you could have weighed in. How you feeling, babe? Thank you for coming. I'm sure you are. Is that a Red Bull?
There's a central property manager for that site.
All right, we're just missing Kennard.
He's right there.
Oh, hello. It's like a stealth commissioner.
He's the guy up front.
How you doing, Jeff?
Because the one part was an ice cream shop, and it wasn't really space. It was freezer, counter.
Jeff, would you like to give the invitation, or should I ask someone else?
You're expecting a lot from your conversations.
Unless I say it's brilliant. I'll bet so.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll let you know.
All right, so I reached out to your colleague. I had a thing I got from Remarkable for $30 off of a pen. And I reached out to her, I'm like, did you get your pen? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, here, you can get $30 off. I love this thing. I'm addicted.
Apparently, you can. There's a film that you can add to an iPad now to get the same effect. Other than it won't be light.
Really?
Miss Veronica. Come on, guys. Is Diana in the room?
She's here.
Is she in the room physically?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 2024 Strategic Planning Retreat. I have asked my colleague, Commissioner Kennard, to lead us in the invocation, and I assume you can do the pledge as well, sir.
Sure.
If you're willing and able to stand and would like to join us, please do so.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer again today, so thankful for the many blessings in our lives. Lord, we pray that you would be with us as we go about planning for the future of our county. We thank you for this opportunity to be here, for the public and staff that is here to hear open and heartfelt conversation about making a plan to move our county forward as best as we can. We ask for wisdom, we ask for discernment, and Lord, we pray that you would give us open ears, minds, and hearts as we go about our meeting today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Which flag are we flying? This one?
Yeah, let's do the American flag today.
There's an American one over there. Don't be throwing me under the bus.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Steve.
Oh.
Why are you all the way at that end? I need to get you in throwing distance.
Veronica, do you need your coloring things?
Obviously, we're a little bit more informal at this. I have asked the commissioners to sit where we can all have a more group sort of discussion versus just lined up in a row. This way I can see them when they want to speak a lot more easily and all that good stuff. So I am incredibly excited to be talking about strategic planning. Some folks, I think, still don't necessarily understand what it is. There is no magic alchemy to it other than when you see what you want to be in the future and you break those down into steps and assign a timeline and the intermediate steps to get to the end goal. When you write them down, there is magic in that, and that's exactly what we've done. It bears repeating. I know hopefully a lot of you are aware of this story, but it bears repeating because a lot of our citizens don't necessarily know this. When we were doing the strategic planning sessions in 21 and 22, but mostly in 22, we hired 2 facilitators to do this, and we had 2 town halls, and then we put 40 citizen leaders in a room together to strategize what Citrus County wants to be, because we know the Suncoast was coming in and going to go all the way through our county. We knew there was going to be epic change. I'm from here. A lot of us have spent much of our lives, if not all of our lives here, and we want this place to be someplace that still feels like home in the future. The facilitator, there's one actively facilitating and one was standing next to me, and he said, you know, in all the years of doing government strategic planning facilitation, this is the first one that is citizen-led. And my jaw literally dropped. I'm like, are you kidding me? Seriously? He goes, yeah, this is the first one that's citizen-led. I said, what do they normally do? And he said, the commissioners just figure it out. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. We change, of course, every 2 to 4 years or whenever. But we 5 could have the biggest hearts and the biggest brains on the planet for service to our community, and we're still only 5 people. It's not enough. You have to have citizen input. So I am exceptionally proud of this plan, mostly because it was citizen-led, not commissioner-led. And for that, I am immensely grateful. I'm very grateful for all the hard work of the staff. I'm grateful for Steve Howard being here to lead us through this. And with that, that's an excellent segue to you, Mr. Howard.
I'm on a different seat over here, so I feel a little out of place here. But I remember about a year ago, actually I was on that side of the table, but I'm going to start with a quote that I talked about a year ago. And I said, as I started a year ago, and I stated, if this government remained focused and determined, there was nothing that we could not accomplish as a team, which we called Team Citrus. I always say the very word impossible, if you put a space in it, is impossible. So there's a lot of accomplishments that have happened in the last 12 months, and it's not because of me, it's not because of it's because of us. And Miles, which is doing a great job here doing some photography, I love when Citrus, where he underlines us. So at the end of the day, it's really about us moving a community forward. So I'm proud of all the accomplishments as a Board of County Commissioners, with your support, with the citizens, and Team Citrus and all of our employees that keep the county running. With that, I'd like to start with a new video that was just put together of a lot of, not all the accomplishments, but several accomplishments that are, I think, major milestones, a lot of accomplishments in the last 12 months. Thank you.
That is one of our citizens, by the way. It's a Citrus County Eagle.
This is a big deal for Citrus County. We've gone from a culture of that ain't gonna happen to it's happening.
is a great day for Citrus County and the Citrus County Animal Shelter.
A big thank you to Miles for putting that together and all the hard work. This truly has been a year of action. With that, I want to go into the 12-month performance review. We were here about 6 months ago. I always say what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So we're doing a lot of measuring now across the county and all the good work that's going on. So with that, I'm going to roll into the 12-month performance review. Next slide, please. Whoever's running this for me. Perfect. The first item, I know we talked about this about 6 months ago. This has been something the board has worked, past boards, current boards, to see this accomplished, and we've actually achieved that as far as construction going forward. We're beginning to see the results of that. So that was a big win in 2023. We're going to see more of that in 2024 with anticipation of completion of December 2025. Animal shelter, another project that's been talked about a long time. Very, I think, successful. We're going to be receiving about 90% plans in February. So I know lots of support across the community, all the speaking engagements I go to, a lot of funding opportunities, I think, that are coming in from citizens and others. So I think that's going to be an amazing opportunity to see that become reality. Another item that had been talked about a long time, and a lot of work with the county commissioners and looking to the private sector. So that check was delivered with the board's support, and now we're leaving that now to Lifestream to build that facility. Another big win in 2023. Barge Canal, I think another opportunity, promising asset that needs to be continue to be leveraged. We're looking at receiving the final design plans in February, and we think there's other opportunities. Obviously, we're going after appropriations from the state, but I think this is another great opportunity for this county to see this project also get to the finish line. Inverness Airport Business Park, another facility, industrial park, I think since 2001. We've seen a lot of opportunity with that. The goal was by Christmas to get the utilities in and get the roads in. That's been accomplished, substantially completed. We're going to go on now to phase 2, hangars and other things. And also I think there's other opportunities. Again, another strategic asset for this county and this community, which I think will lead to high-tech, high-paying jobs, which will allow this county to diversify its economy. Crystal River, and Captain Davis, I wish he was here, but a lot of progress I think has been made in the last 12 months. More progress needs to be made, and I'm excited. I want to see this project be accomplished with the rest of the commissioners as well. But I'm looking forward to beginning the formal EA process. Unfortunately, this triggers a federal permit, which is always concerning to me because it's lots of dollars, it's lots of delays and things like that. But we're going to do everything we can with our administration and with the support of the board to see this project get to the finish line, expedite it as quickly as we can. Employee pay study. It's our greatest asset. The employees keep our county running. About 150 to 200% is what it's going to cost you if you lose an employee. So a big thanks to the Board of Commissioners' continued support for our employees. I think that was a big win to get that to the finish line. Also, evaluating other resources, other opportunities. There was findings that was presented to the board. We're bringing the fire back as well. That's in progress in April. But another decision point I think the board will have to look at some point to diversify these revenues. The state continues to, I think, take away home rule. So you're going to have to look at other ways to fund your government. It's not going to get less. It's going to cost you more. But what are some other opportunities? So I think this presents some opportunities to look at and study. I think those are opportunities. Some of you have actually indicated that. But you're going to see this study come forward in April, as well as other decision points I think you could look in the budgeting process potentially going into 2025. Transportation concurrency, we've looked at that. I think there's some other things that you've looked at. Obviously, it's pretty costly to try to get back into that, but I think there's other ways to continue to look at this. You did impact fees at 100%. I think that was the right decision to do. I think that was another big win in 2023. So we're going to continue to look at other alternatives to continue to do that with a variety of things. One thing was not accepting roads this board did, but that's not up there, but I think that was another strategic thing that this board did that I think was the right decision to make in 2023. And then master plans. We have a lot of different plans across the county. Part of that was the consolidated. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. They're going to come forward, but I think GIS has done amazing work, award-winning product I think that they've got here. I think it's going to be a benchmark for other communities to look at. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but this was achieved in 2023 at the direction of this board as well. And Beverly Hills, lots of discussions on that. I've learned too much about pickleball courts, but we're excited about our new county engineer. He's already looking at that. Is there some other ways to value engineer this project? We're looking forward to actually bringing something back to the board in April to try to see if we can, put this project across the finish line as well. Other steps were done. One was that pool being filled in. That'd been a long time coming, but it was accomplished in 2023, as well as conceptual designs for pickleball courts. And a master plan, which I think is really important for this county. You're the nature coast. You have lots of opportunities. These are assets as well. So we're going to come back with that, this master plan, February the 1st, which I think is a good thing to do for this community. And I think lots of support across the community that use these parks. I use them myself with my child. So you have some amazing assets that we can leverage in this community. The strategic planning, we talked about that. I always say hope is not a plan. Most governments talk about strategic planning. They don't implement it. I like to implement plans. So you're seeing that, I think, in the last 12 months, collectively as a board, staff, and the public, you're seeing lots of results as a result of being focused, persistent. It costs you money for delays, and you're seeing a lot of opportunities, I think, because of the decisions this board is making. So we did hold the mid-year report, implemented Achieve It software. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. They're going to come forward, which is, again, cutting edge doing that. We're putting this county really into the 21st century with reporting. So the next step will be project dashboards to the public, again, enhancing communications with the public and transparency, I think is amazing opportunity to continue to communicate this message across the community. And communications plan, I've heard about this across the community, trying to enhance that. I'll be performing a communications audit. We're going to bring that forward in the next few months. We have Mike Bridges who's going to talk in a few moments, communications manager. And again, enhance community outreach, crisscrossing this county, and really telling our story. We have a good story to tell, but I don't think we always tell it. So I think we have that opportunity to do a lot of things. I want to do monthly videos with the public, out in the field with the commissioner, spotlights, all those things. I actually want to create my own blog site to make sure we're telling our story. About 71% of the public get their news media stories from social media. So we got to make sure we're actually performing at the level of a 21st century county to make sure that we're reaching the public and telling our story effectively. Next slide. Beautify Citrus. You approved 4 additional litter crew, which I think was an amazing thing to do. There's litter across this county. I think we have to establish additional public-private partnerships. There's a lot of litter. I get a lot of calls every week, every 2 weeks on this. It's amazing. We got to do a better job at that, working with our partners. So we try to enhance that with Keep Citrus County Beautiful. And we're going to continue that. Also the leadership of Commissioner Kennard as well. We're going to continue to do that as a board as well to do that. I want to show a little video because they're really, I always call them the rock stars of our employees for all the good work that our litter crew is doing. If we can show that video for the public of all the litter that we're actually picking up across this county.
Trash is everybody's problem. What our job is mainly is picking up litter and trash off the right-of-ways of the roads in Citrus County. My name is Patrick Collins, and I'm a maintenance worker who's assigned to the litter crew,
which is basically a 4-man team, and they pick up all county roads. My name is Dan Sherlock. I'm the director of Citrus County Central Landfill.
Now, we don't get every single piece of litter. That's impossible. But we do focus on all the main pieces, big pieces that are very visible. We weigh in every day. We log all the roads we do and how much litter we pick off of each road.
I know the guys picked up an illegal dump here the last couple of weeks, and they actually hand-picked 900 pounds in one spot. I think that we have a large number of people that want the county to be clean. If you have a small little tiny street and somebody's dumped garbage all over the street, You just call the landfill office and talk to the person there, and we can schedule it.
You get a lot of thumbs up doing our job. People driving by usually thank you and shout out. So, we appreciate you guys, which is a good thing.
They do really good work, and one of the goals this year is I see a lot of these signs that say available on them. We don't want them to ever be available. We want to get the private sector and citizens to help us make sure they're helping us do that as well. So thank you for all their efforts that they're doing is amazing. Obviously, the other thing is we got some enforcement language. We hope that'll help. And also, we're going to do other things, monument sign, making sure when folks come into the public, I think they do judge a book by its cover. So I think we have an amazing opportunity also to do some good things as a result of this initiative. Management and progress. These are a few things that I want to talk about. Kind of one thing going into 2024. There's a program that I instituted at the last county I was at. It was called Citrus County Shining Stars. It's in your packet. I think it's an amazing opportunity. It's called Suggestions to Assist and Reduce Spending. And part of that program is really to empower the employees. They are on the front lines. I think there's some amazing opportunities that they can look at cost-saving opportunities. They can be rewarded in a variety of ways. That's something I'm very interested in doing. The last employer I was with, we saved about $3.5 million, probably over about a 10-year period, and continued to save dollars. So it's an exciting program I want to launch. I'm going to bring that to you forward in probably the next 90 days with some things attached to it, which I think can be very less costly to do. And it will save some money and even have what I call maybe like an innovation fund opportunity as we begin to brainstorm across this county with our greatest asset, our employees. They are the boots on the ground. So I gave you that just to let you know what I'm up to. I'm going to bring that forward to you in the future. I'm going to ask our folks from GIS to come forward to talk about the major development map. And really, I'll tell you, a lot of counties across the state are jealous of our GIS department and all the good work that they're doing. But this was requested from the board to look at this, to look at where the growth is going. So now we have an interactive map that'll be available even to the public and the commissioners. I think it'll help us with better decision making. So thank you.
I'm sorry.
These are just in the folder, she said.
Oh, yeah, I got them. What's that? Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the work that we've been doing with the mapping. This has been a work in progress initiated by Commissioner Bays, I believe, who started this idea. She had originally asked us for a printed map, a wall map of all the major development that was going on. And from that point, we decided, hey, we could really do this as a nice web-based product that could be updated regularly and presented, to the public, available to everyone to be able to see this. So to reach this map, the best way to do it is just to go under the departments on the main BOCC site, and then under Systems Management and GIS. You can go directly over to our GIS division website, and then over to our map gallery, where we have numerous maps here available to the public. But this one is the Growing Citrus. It's a story map. And so you basically just can scroll down through the elements of the map. We have the first one, which is an overview map. And you can zoom into this map and see all of the different projects that are going on and that have applications in progress or perhaps have been approved. So for instance, in this area, we can pull up, if we click on it, a pop-up should pop up for us. Let's see. No pop-up. There we go. And it will show you any applications that are related to that parcel, new and recent ones. And if you click through these at the bottom, it'll give you details on each of the applications that are related to that parcel. There's a legend over here if you need to see what any of the colors mean. So they're colored according to the status of the project. The road projects are on here as well. So you can see the 491 project down here in this area. And you can also see the footprint of the Suncoast here as that's coming through and how that relates. So this one just provides a good overview of all the different projects, road projects and other projects, subdivisions, other developments that are going on. And then after that, if you keep scrolling, there's also a tour of these projects where you can get more details. So we can go to, for instance, this first one, Crystal Point. And if you click on these, you'll get a nice visual of any plans that we have that have been made available to us. And if you just keep scrolling, it will take you directly from place to place in the map. So that lists as many projects as we've been given access to, and we will keep this updated by working with land development for these. You may see some that have like a logo and then some arrows, so you can scroll through to see which other plans are available. And then finally, at the very last, we have an overview of a heat map. This will take a few seconds to load because this is pulling all the live permit data from over the past year and showing like the hot spots of the development. So when you see these bold yellow areas in here, those are all the hotspot areas where the most development has occurred. So you can see there's been an awful lot of permitting in Citrus Springs area, over here towards Inverness. And then you can also zoom in. There's individual permit points underneath that if you wanted to see details of particular permit applications. So this, as I said, is available to the public if you want to share this, with your constituents and let them, have a look and review the projects that are going on. And we'll keep updating this with land development.
Awesome, nice work.
Thank you.
This is brilliant. Very well done, and kudos Commissioner Bays for pushing that idea. That's
Yes,
awesome.
It was
Good
a
job.
very good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, very good work. Next, I'm gonna ask Mike to come forward. Perfect. This is just gonna be a quick update of our communications plan, brand building. We gotta be a little kind to him, because he's only been on this job for a couple weeks now. So we passed the torch from Veronica to Mike, but I wanted him to update you kind of where we're at. I kind of put a little bit of the brakes on the implementation of the plan until we had the new communications manager on board, because I thought it was important to make sure we got his input, feedback into this plan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Administrator. That's my presentation so far. No, I do want to say, in the midst of coming on board with a robust, regular meeting and public hearing and this strategic planning session and legislative days coming up next week, you guys really know how to make somebody feel welcome when they come right in. So I'm happy to jump in with both feet. And in terms of the communications plan, the baton's been passed. We have transitioned over into communications. I've accepted that, and fortunately, I'm in a position where the team has, to carry the sports metaphor further, built a really nice lead for the last lap as we take this into from planning the work to working the plan, essentially. So more steps to follow, including the ones that Mr. Administrator added just a little while ago in the meeting. But the overarching strategy, to hopefully not overuse that word in this particular session, is clarity in communications or effectiveness in communications. Madam Chair, in talking about some of the other strategic initiatives, talked about transparency, not just transparency, but effective transparency. And we want to be effective with our communications as well. And that's to be as clear and direct and proactive as possible. We want to be proactive and responsive. I think that's sort of the overarching issue there. Right message through the right channel at the right time. There's going to be lots of different ways we do that, from written words to photographs to infographics to video to a lot of the things that we'll probably hear about in the next presentation too. But making sure that we are, again, strategic in terms of using the resources we've got and using those assets that we've got.
Very good.
Thank you.
There's a couple, during the budgeting process, there was some funding that was put into the budget, and I hope to bring that forward when the plan's completed. And I think within there may be some potential opportunities for some positions. I'm going to talk about that at a later date. One, I think there's a big emphasis on an intergovernmental affairs coordinator. I think there's an opportunity to ensure that at the local, state, and federal, that we're actually keeping all the issues year-round. And that means we partner with the lobbyists. It doesn't mean that takes away from the lobbyists. But also, as you continue to see all these emails right now during the session, there's lots of financial impacts that hit this community. And also, I'd like to see potentially a better opportunity for grants. I think our staff does the best they can do. They're doing good work. But I want to see a bigger emphasis on that, and maybe potentially the grant opportunity could roll underneath this office. And I think there's lots of money that we're leaving on the table potentially that we could go after at all those levels. So that's important to me. And also on the local issues as well, we're going to talk about that at a later date, in a social media content specialist kind of position, which I think would be within the budget we have now. But again, about 70% of the folks get this from social media, so we want to make sure that they're getting the message from us as well. So I think all that is embracing the communications, making sure that we're getting our story told.
I want to add just 2 points to that too. Anytime you're taking people's money and then investing it for them, in other words, tax dollars, it is our absolute sacred duty to, as Mike said, I coined the phrase, not just being transparent, but effective transparency. People need to understand what we're doing with their tax dollars. So that's why communications is so doggone important. But one of the great side benefits to that is it actually makes us more cost efficient with tax dollars. The number of times I've seen staff have to say the same thing over and over and over again in very long emails because it's a complex topic, that can be so much better out there on a website where it's self-serve information instead of tying up staff time answering questions that if only was professionally and very effectively, transparently communicated to citizens, then it would be one and done, hopefully. Do it right the first time. Carry on.
Okay. That was really just our, we have a lot of items that we do across the county, management in progress. These are some of the key ones. Some that, they're not targets for action, but there's a lot of activity that we continue to push forward on behalf of the community. And just wanted to, I'm proud of all the accomplishments that Team Citrus has done over the last 12 months. It's pretty amazing. And I compliment all the staff out here in the audience because, again, without their efforts, this good work would not get done. And without the leadership of this board, it would get done. Also, our partnerships at the state and federal level that help us with the grant funding as well. All of those attribute to the success that I think we've accomplished in the last 12 months. I'm looking forward to 2024, which I'm confident that the brightest days lie ahead for this community, and it will soar to even greater heights in 2024. So that's my conclusion of my performance report for this board and for the community. For that, I'll turn it over to the chair.
Okay. When were we going to have Achieve It?
Oh, we do have Achieve It. You're right. We have one more left. I forgot Achieve It was actually out there. Sorry. If Achieve It could come forward.
How can you forget that?
How could I forget them? So
Seriously.
I rearranged this order. So we're thrilled to have them actually with us. Again, talking about communications, this is something that was budgeted. NASA uses this. Alachua County's using this. A lot of governments are using it. But I'm not going to take your talking points. But again, most governments fail because they just don't execute. So we want to ensure that we execute. So with that, I want to turn that over to Chiva to talk a little bit about what they're doing with our partnership.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve, Veronica, and commissioners. Really excited to be here today to showcase some of the great work that we've done over the past few months with your team, and then also look towards 2024.
May want to speak a little bit more into the mic,
Sorry.
just so everyone can hear you.
Apologies for that.
No worries.
Just looking forward to 2024 and some of the plans that we've worked with Veronica on bringing into the platform and what we can do in 2024. So just a quick introduction. I believe Veronica had shared a one-pager with y'all, just giving an overview of the platform and what the software really does. But in general, our company is a software and services company, been around for 10 years, and you'll see on the next slide all the clients that we get to work with. But we help organizations, both big and small, execute on the plans that they set out to do. We're here to give you a mini presentation similar to a full-day workshop that we did last month with some of the heads of the departments of Citrus County, but really hoping to tee up the strategic planning session, give y'all some things to think about. And we're going, like you said, we're going to continue to support Veronica with the platform and hopefully make Citrus County continue to be more transparent and accountable for the work that they set out to do. So here's just a quick overview of all the great clients that we get to work with. Like I said, we work with NASA, with the Department of Veteran Affairs at the federal level, your neighbors up north who work with Alachua County, like I said, state, local governments we all work with, along with commercial clients such as healthcare organizations. Just real quick about ourselves. My name is Eddie Rizikowski. I've been the strategy consultant that's been working with Veronica the past few months, and my background's in working big change projects with governments.
And I'm Joe Kraus. I'm a co-founder of the company and been here for, at this point, I've changed that to 11 years, helping organizations take the plans they create and actually execute upon them. Because the gap that exists in the marketplace, which Eddie will talk about in a minute, is that plans are created, and then the issue is what happens once the plan's been created. That's where we come in. So all the great work you're going to do after this session, which is what are we working on and how are we going to do it, we're going to enable you the ability to get status updates and reporting so that promises made, promises kept. So looking forward to the rest of the presentation.
Great tagline. Let's actually do this.
100%. Thank you.
All right. So I'll let you all into a little secret. Organizations aren't great on executing on their strategies. There's a whole body of research on it, but one specifically, Fortune Magazine has found that only about 10% of the strategies formulated that organizations set out to do each year are actually effectively executed. So what does that mean? It means that at the beginning of the year, they say, okay, we're all going to do these great, grandiose things. We're going to grow this line of business. We're going to help serve this many more people. But then when they get to the end of the year, they look back and say, we didn't really get around to doing all that much.
And that's the bad news, so to speak. So we're saying 90% of things typically, potentially don't get done. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that second stat, 70% of the time, if we were to do a post-mortem on your plan, everyone here is a subject matter expert engaged in the community. You have a good sense of what should get done. So 70% of the time, the content of your plans is perfectly primed, if it was executed, to have the impact you'd expect. So that means that everybody here knows how to make a plan. The question is what happens once the plan's been created. And an interesting stat you may be looking at is, okay, if this says 10%, and you're probably thinking to yourself right now, what is our percentage? So I'll leave that to yourself. You can think on that. What is best in class? Is it 100%? Are the best organizations that we work with getting 100% of their plan completed? And the answer, good for all of us, is no. That would be a pretty tall task. Studies found that if you were executing anything north of 70%, 70 to 75%, you are best in class in any industry you're working in. So that means that you're going to come up with great ideas today. Some of them may be executed to the greatest potential. Some of them may not actually stand the test of time. In 6 months, you might say, we're going to do something else. That is okay. And as long as you look at the end of the year and say, we are north of that 70% mark, you can hang your head high and say, we are best in class. So I wanted to give that as a kind of a call to arms, especially as you're going into the year, as a really great way to benchmark yourself against your peers.
Okay, so just a quick intro on the platform itself. Over the years, we found that there are four main drivers to what best-in-class organizations, what make up their strategic plans, and our platform's built right around that. And we also help support organizations like yours be better at each of these drivers. So again, something to think about as we're going into the strategic planning cycle. The first driver is alignment, making sure you folks can see how everything's connected. I know for myself, early in my career, my first job out of college, it was really tough to see how the work that I was doing really connected to the big picture and across the organization. So the platform does a great job of being able to show all that interconnectedness and gives visibility into what folks are doing across the organization. The next one's accountability, which is challenging for some folks. It's really whose feet are being held to the fire, and making sure that there's someone that is held accountable for that work. We like to use a group project example because, you know, whenever anyone's in school, hate group projects because when everyone's responsible, no one's really accountable for the work. And so the platform, again, does a good job of showing who's responsible, who's, at the end of the day, making those progress updates of being responsible for the work that's being done. There's collaboration. So we have all the commissioners in the room here, but it's also getting input on the strategic plan from everyone across the organization, top down. And then the last one is visibility, which again, what y'all are doing right now is starting at the beginning of the year, coming together for your strategic planning session, but then actually throughout the year getting feedback on what's working, what's not, instead of letting a strategic plan sit all year and then coming back to it at the end.
And as you can imagine, each of these four drivers are simple and complex at the same time. If you look at accountability, it could be overly complex, or visibility, but the good news is the way that you already are set up with your team, the majority of these you already have a lot of the foundational elements, and especially when it comes to visibility, that's the easiest one to solve, which if we advance the slide, basically if you're coming up with a plan, the people need to now see it more often than they probably have seen it in the past. Most organizations that I talk to, if they see the plan twice a year, they're happy. The goal here is to not only have formal report outs that you can do in a situation like this on a regular basis, but to the point that was made by you, Commissioner, was the idea of self-service. So we have the ability seamlessly to create publicly facing websites that would show anything in the plan that you wish to show. Self-service, 24 hours a day, live link. And this is an example of Alachua County's current website. If you go there right now, they have every single one of their measures listed on their website, and that's pulling directly from the Achieve It platform. So as you're spending time making status updates, you don't have to worry about, well, who's seeing this, how can they get access to it? It's self-service. And you also then couple that with meetings like this, and then all of a sudden everybody feels like they're in the know and in the mix. And if they're in the know and they're in the mix, they feel compelled and feel like the plan's really driving them forward. So that's really what it comes down to, is taking the plan that you're developing today and ensuring that there is regular and timely status updates. The average person needs to see something 6 to 8 times before they internally realize what it is. It's the reason why when you see ads on TV, you see a new flavor of Coke, they show it to you 6, 7 times during a football game because they need to get that in there. Same concept applies to a strategic plan. So the fact that you have Achieve It's going to allow for this to happen and let the public see the plan whenever they'd like.
I would assume it also makes inter-team a lot more effective.
100%. The goal is most of the time silos exist within departments. Mm-hmm. Departments may be working down the hall from each other, and they may not have the best understanding of what each team is doing. With Achieve It being a cloud-based platform, all the plans are in one place. So every department can see what other departments are working on, which enhances the ability for collaboration, as well as ensuring there isn't duplicative projects happening. That's usually the aha moments, like, oh, we're looking at that software. No, let's partner together, and it also takes cost out of the system. So that visibility is 100% one of the main foundational elements of it.
That was one of the pieces from last month that was brought up, where the department heads felt like they could call up anyone else and say, hey, I need help on this project. but there's not always the visibility into what someone else is necessarily doing. So we're hoping that this helps drive that even forward.
And to our final point here, and thank you for the time, was that Eddie was here about a month ago and did a cultural assessment. Because as you can imagine, with any strategic plan, it's equal parts strategic planning and equal parts change management. And ultimately, if you move the location of the bathroom from one place to the other, people are probably going to go to the old location 10 times before they remember. So we have an assessment that we did with all your department heads and said, there are 4 stages that we've identified as an organization doing this over 11, 12 years. Where basically a culture of innovation is on the far right, that's utopia, and on the far left you have culture of collaboration. And the goal is, how do we move from left to right? And so culture of collaboration on the far left are organizations that are doing a lot. They're busy, 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 but to the point that was made earlier, maybe some folks aren't talking to each other as often, and sometimes you can confuse being busy with being strategic. At the end of the year, you might say, look at the great year we had, look at all the stuff, versus that great presentation we just saw earlier, look at all the outcomes we drove. That's the type of conversation that maybe isn't always happening in stage 1. Stage 2 is where you say, you know what, we're not going to work on everything, we're going to really cull that list down, and we're going to work on less things that have bigger impact. And that's a fantastic place to be, where you're not having a strategic plan with 1,000 items in it. It's a much more focused thing. But unfortunately in stage 2, changes to the plan aren't typically made mid-cycle. So if something isn't working, people start to say, let's just see how it goes. And you know, when we motor those words, let's just see how it goes, we know how it's going to go. So in stage 2, you have a good lean plan, but you're not making changes as you see new information come in. Stage 3, you are making those changes. You are saying, this is something where we're going to have a smaller, leaner, meaner plan. We're going to do a little bit less. We're going to make changes. But it typically doesn't happen in real time in stage 3. Stage 4 is where you are in meetings like this, and you're saying, these 3 things are working, let's do more of it. These 2 are not, let's not do it anymore. And you're really using the strategic plan as a living document. So as you can imagine, stage 4 is there. And Eddie's going to share the results of kind of how you already are ahead of the curve based on the most recent survey.
Yeah, with doing the assessment, found that most folks on average felt that you're around that stage 2, which is great. Normally we come in and there's a stage 0, and so we find folks that are usually in between that and 1, which is great. And I think that's a testament to the past year of all the work that we all have put in of executing on those strategic projects. And now it's coming in and connecting those more to the strategic plan, the special projects, and then just moving things forward. Some of the feedback was, trying to having multiple priorities. I personally can imagine having a bunch of different commissioners with all competing agendas and priorities. Sometimes it might be difficult to know which is the right direction to go down. So finding more of that cohesive connectedness moving forward into this next year.
So ultimately, that's how we are partnering from a software vendor perspective, but also throughout this entire engagement from a best practice perspective. So there's a lot of different ways you can strategic plan. That's what makes it exciting, but it also can make it scary because there is no right answer. It is not a math problem, but there are best practices that we see. And with our friends from the Veterans Health Administration, they have a term that I really love. It's called promising practices, where a certain department may be working on something and they say, I think this might be something to keep an eye on, and then it graduates to a best practice. So that type of conversation and collaboration will begin to happen on a regular basis using Achieve It. You've already implemented it. We've had the software already trained for everybody, and now it's just taking the wonderful plan that you're developing and executing it and actually doing it. So are there any questions for Eddie or I?
Board? Good? I'm really excited about this.
Excellent. So are we.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're at the break.
Now it's really for you,
Okay, and we're at the break, right?
the break.
All right. Commissioner Kennard, I think we all have to leave at 4 because I planned my day around leaving at 4 anyway. You needed to go. So let's do a 5-10 minute break, something like that. Somewhere in between. So let's see. Let's come back at 1:55. That's 7 minutes. How's that? Try to keep us on track.
I was super tired. I didn't mean any disrespect.
All right.
And then you're beating me up on next door, and I'm thinking,
Can we-
I'm voting with you guys.
I don't want to be evil and hit the gavel, but if everyone could,
I just thought.
Maybe I am gonna have to hit the gavel.
It could be, she's sick, but I didn't mean any disrespect. And you got my vote, so.
it's not a good hard thwack like the one.
I'm having a little bit just for you.
Wow, you're going to be bouncing off the walls because you don't normally have caffeine.
I got like this much, so if I don't sleep tonight, I'm calling you. Like,
Okay, when Commissioner Finnegan is bouncing off the walls, losing her mind, it's because she's having caffeine.
I do have another energy drink in the fridge.
Oh, please, no, no. Okay, Commissioner discussion. Oh, I was going to ask you, didn't I have a list of the pre-thoughts somewhere? Where is it in this?
Oh, I'm going to pull that up. So actually, would you like me to go ahead and just go through the 2 slides that I have? And then,
Yeah.
okay. So
Welcome
this
to
is
my
what we all
world.
came for, to set goals for 2024. You guys did a great job of setting reasonable, achievable goals for 2023, and I think staff did an excellent job of identifying the steps needed to achieve those goals. And you guys will see that we are high above the 10%. Not sure that we're quite to 70, but we are definitely on the path to success. So for 2023, of the targets for action that came out of our last retreat, these are the goals that were achieved, substantially completed or fully completed. So these have no more steps left for initiation. They are in progress and will be completed at some point. So, for instance, 491, that construction is ongoing, but there's nothing stopping us from getting that done. So these are the goals that will be coming off of your list of targets for action. They do not need to roll forward. We will just continue to track them until completion is reached on each step. These goals are still in progress, so some of these were not able to be achieved within 1 year, but we are still actively working on all of these goals, so they will be rolling forward into 2024, unless you guys would like
Commissioner
to.
Schleba,
make
look what's number
choices.
1 on the list.
Yes. You guys would
Commissioner
like
Kennard, number 2.
No. So unless there's anything that you would like to remove from this list, staff will continue to track these and roll them forward into 2024. So we will be tracking some of these projects and adding on to them as you provide input. But we did compile some possible targets for action 2024 based on conversations with the commissioners and internally. So we do have a few of those projects that came to a natural break at the end of 2023, such as the Inverness Airport Business Park. Phase 1 is substantially complete, and so we're going to go ahead and start tracking Phase 2. Same with the communications plan. It has been developed. We now plan to implement that, and so we will be continuing to track that plan as we move forward. The rest of those items could be targets for action for 2024. They could be adjusted based on your discussion, or they could be removed entirely. You can also feel free to add any topics that you would like to have us pursue in 2024. So with that, there's your list.
Excellent. And this is the fun part where we get to look into more of what we want to do in the future. This is specific, as awkward as this is to have us separated like this. This I felt was going to be a little bit more of a collegial roundtable kind of discussion. So which of you would like to go? Are we going to go by subject or?
That is your call.
Okay. What was our subject list?
We have community livability, community building.
So environment was a big one.
Yes, environment
Okay.
is a huge one. Governance.
So of the, who would like to just jump out there? Anyone?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess just walking down the list of things that I see here, constructing the business park, phase 2 of that. My understanding was that when we started down this road, that it was going to be getting the business park, I guess, shovel ready for companies to come in, and it would be ready to construct a building of the size and configuration that they need. Has that plan change now, or we're just having a discussion if we want to start building buildings out there? That doesn't seem to,
Yeah, I'll let Frank come forward. But we have funding for phase two, which is, I'll let Frank kind of talk about really, I almost call it phase one's substantially completed, phase two, we've funded phase three, which I almost call it a phase three, where we now got to go vertical.
That's essentially it in a nutshell. So phase one was not the entire 80 acres of the business park. It was a portion of the business park. So phase two appropriation was $9 million, which will cover the additional work, including the taxiway extension that will connect with the business park. It will also basically do the site work on the remaining portion of the business park, and then it includes an overlay of Airport Road. So essentially, there is still work to do, but as soon as phase one is completed, there's a few odds and ends to wrap up. A lift station, there was a delay on a panel and so on, but basically the infrastructure's in the ground as far as water and sewer. So we are ready for vertical construction on phase one just as soon as we get those wrap-up issues. Access roads are in and that kind of thing. So we can move forward with that while phase two is under design and eventual construction. So that basically is the wrap-up on how those break down.
so this isn't actually constructing buildings up there when we don't have tenants yet?
No, exactly.
Okay.
So we're basically on track for that,
Okay.
site readiness and vertical construction. Yet to be determined whether we do that as a board with bonding, grant funding, a master plan with bonding to build out, or private sector investment and ground leases.
I want to talk, Frank,
I'm
maybe we have
glad you mentioned the taxiway, because that's where I was gonna go next, is I thought we requested additional funding to connect this actually, to the airport, and sounds like it's included in this phase.
It is, and it will be under the design. There's some fortuitous things as well. For example, the taxiway extension is going to connect with the proposed hangar for the Livewire Aviation. That's a $3 million hangar that we're doing a 50-50 match with FDOT on that one. So there's some good synergy. And again, that taxiway extension, we're going to save money because there was a tons of dirt that wasn't foreseen in the grade. So we've got just stockpiles of fill dirt that we can use on that taxiway extension. So, we've had some challenges, but there's also some opportunities that came out.
Okay.
Could you talk about the hangar too, that we,
And Watson, and where we are with Watson Road.
Sure. So Watson Road, we're teed up for the $7 million appropriation. I think we've got momentum. I'm hopeful on that one. If it doesn't get funded, we roll into the job growth grant funding cycle, which is, Commerce's opportunity for infrastructure. I think we've laid the groundwork, and we've got investment happening to the north of the industrial park, which also helps us get that attention from the state. We've got a $10 million investment planned for private industrial space, so could be a good catalyst. We're also, before we abandon hope for last year's grant cycle on the Job Growth Grant Fund, we still do have an active application for a 24,000 square foot hangar, be a commercial hangar. I have proposed that if the state were to award that, that'd be the first building coming out of the ground in the business park, so it could serve as a catalyst. I think there is certainly a need to get some vertical construction there, because otherwise it's just a field. But when people come there and there's a building, the taxiway is connected, now we start to get synergies again. So I'm positive about that. If not, we'll shift gears and we'll maybe go after Watson or another large project. We've got fire suppression still to handle over there. We're moving forward. Steve and I were working on that last week. To get a comprehensive plan for fire suppression on both airports, which is going to be great. I think Crystal River is going to be a slam dunk. We've got a 12-inch water main. I'm going to look at Ken Cheek right now. We've got a county-owned 12-inch water main that can, without dedicated development needs, we can probably do fire suppression at the entire airport for that build-out. So again, we've found some Easter eggs in our progress here.
All right.
we're also having a conversation with the city of Inverness as well.
Yep.
As an opportunity to partner, if there's opportunities to partner with them and synergy opportunities, we're having some good conversations with them as well.
All right, good, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Bays?
Sure. I think all of those are mine. I love the communications plan. I think this is a opportunity for us to create our narrative and not have it created for us, if you will. Talked about the business park. I think we're headed in the right direction. We're going to get the return on the investment will be great. I think there's things that will happen there over time. But it also leads to another, and I'm going to put it out there, one of the issues was getting the animal shelter off of that site. Another thing that, just for conversation only, not saying that we should do it, but I think we should at least investigate and explore the opportunity. But the fairgrounds is kind of tired and worn out. There could be potential that if we could locate some space or grounds that we have within the county to potentially move that more center of the county, leave the racetrack, but move the fairgrounds. We've heard that we need a shelter with all the special needs shelter for anything that we have going on here. And I think there's ways that we can make that a multi-purpose building to serve multiple purposes. It could almost act like a convention center, if you will, when it's not being utilized as a shelter. And if we could co-locate that with the fairgrounds, it gives you kind of that plug and play for venues that we could have within the community. I have no idea if there's any appetite with the Fairground Association to even do that, but I think it is something that we should put out there and start the conversation. I know they've wanted new bathrooms, they've wanted to fix up some things that they have that are, like I said, tired and worn out. And that would really lend that business park out there, that we could have an educational campus, we could do a whole number of things. Put an A&P, a real A&P school out there, which would really elevate our game, bringing people into our community, having that really high net worth income potential. I've heard a lot about the next item on there, the aquatic protection plan. I've got the two commissioners are sitting across the room from me that their districts represent a lot of our freshwater bodies, or saltwater bodies. And then we have the lakes on the other side. And I know that, we keep asking for money to preserve and protect those rivers and those natural resources. Too Far was given a grant. We need to make sure that we're helping them facilitate using that money and they don't lose it. And I think there's also some opportunities after speaking with them that you can, it's all like harvesting water. We can use that to our environmental protection, which I would also say that with all this new development that we're doing in aquatic protection, we should really be looking for more master regional stormwater drainage so that we can harvest water. We can really recharge our aquifer in the Central Ridge area, and that will help both regions, our lakes and on the east side or the west side of the county. Developing a 5-year financial plan. I've said it for years. When you're dealing with a $400 million budget, it's now the end of January. I think would be the prudent thing that we start to forecast what our revenues and expenditures are. And as we continue to move in that direction, this year in the legislature, there's a lot of talk about more homestead exemptions. And if they actually got enacted, I don't know, I've asked for our O&B director to look into that to tell us what that implication could mean to us for revenue, but across the state, it would mean $1.44 billion of lost revenue in ad valorem. I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, I think we need alternative revenues. We need to know that we have an assurance and a surety of what we've got to deal with for monies, and if need to look this 5 years out, and we need to start putting our CIP plan together and implementing that year over year into that budget so that we really know what we've got and what we need to effectuate with it. With the growth and development that we have, the master corridor study, I think, is going to be exceptionally important in this county. There's been 900 homes that's already been approved over off of Rock Crusher. We know all the development that's in the Central Ridge off of 491. The state has put the sign at the corner of 491 and 44 at the racetrack and says that's the evacuation route. We know that there's 2 lanes, about 7 miles, that we need to get 4 lane. We know that there's a big project that's coming before us with approximately 7,000 homes and 250,000 square feet of commercial real estate, that we need to plan for that. In today's dollars, and we know what inflation is, today's dollars, our estimate is about $170 million to 4-lane that. So I think we need to stay vigilant on that. I've been in Tallahassee the last couple of days. I'm not certain that, from what I'm hearing, that the monies that we asked for on 41 are going to go forward. I still think 491 is more important to us at this point than 41, but I think we need to really get that into our overall master plan. And this master corridor study would be perfect for that, because if we don't do this study, it's going to cost us money to do it, but if we don't do that, we're going to pay condemnation. We can sequester and tell people where we're going to need these corridors and get that in there so that we're not buying back property that's been developed. And I think Croft is a great example of that. That was on our plan for years and years to widen. And people just keep developing to the point where it's pointless now. And then we've already talked about the forecasting tool. I think that's the financial component of that, developing that 5-year plan. So that's my 2 cents.
I think some of these were collated from various commissioners' comments, because I know some of my comments got collated with yours. So based on, you said that
Sure.
you had turned all of these in. So a couple quick things. The communications plan, of course, I absolutely love that. Aquatic protection, one thing that I really want to look at is the preemption by the state on us not being able to do local ordinances for fertilizer usage. And it looks like it's going to automatically sunset. It's a 1-year thing that it's tied to funding for UFIS? And it will automatically sunset after this budget year. So I would like us to look at, there's a whole study, and we can have staff, so it goes through, have staff send you what I got from someone that has come before us before about all the background on it. And it would be really, I think, very critical for us if we're bless you, if we're getting all of these millions of dollars to fix the waters, it would behoove us to reduce what's going into the water, much like septic to sewer and everything else. So they're really common sense, very calendar-based bans, like not being able to do fertilizer during the super high rainy season because it just runs right off into the y'all's districts and our districts and with the lakes too. So the first step would be not to do the harm versus having to pay to fix the harm later. The back to the Inverness Business Park, one of the topics that I wanted to talk about, which is not on here, is getting into how we fund things. But back to the business park, I love the idea. I did not think about moving the fairgrounds over there, but I do think we're supposed to be getting some land back from the Suncoast, I believe. And so that might be a really good place because it's next to the Suncoast and everything else that we could do. Cold weather, hurricane, if we get another tornado, a shelter, a convention center, a community center for our nonprofits to be able to rent to do their big events that won't cause problems like some of the other venues. And but I didn't even think about moving the fairground over there. I know Steve had talked about that when he first came on board, that maybe that wasn't the highest and best use of that land, and the fair could be better sited somewhere else, more central in the community. So I think that that's a great thing to look at as well, if they'd be willing to look at moving the Fair Association. That's all I have at this moment. I do want to get into my big thing is that I want to bring sales tax in conversation in for some sort of initial landing. But Commissioner Schleybaugh or Commissioner Finnegan, would you like to talk about anything on this list?
Just that list or whatever else I've jotted down?
Well, just like I did, you can carry on.
Okay. Do you need me to turn this on, or are we good? Oh, maybe it is on. I'm not sure. Okay, so something on that list first, the master corridor study. I would agree with that, and one of the biggest complaints that I hear from everyone, or maybe not even complaint, just a concern, is the growth. And some people don't want one more house being built. Obviously, we can't do that, but I try to explain the things that we can do so that closer. How about now?
There you go.
So that we're doing things the right way. So in my district, with that master plan is someone decided a really long time ago, probably when I was still in grade school, that when the Suncoast Parkway would one day come to Citrus County, that an exit ramp should be on Cardinal. I'm not quite sure why it was Cardinal and not Grover Cleveland, but people are very concerned about Cardinal because now there's Cardinal Farms and we have this whole interchange management area. Yet we don't have any plans to expand Cardinal. We don't own, as a county, enough right-of-way to expand Cardinal, and that's a pretty long road. So someone, if we're doing that study, needs to at least take a look at that in Homosassa, because there are many people that's concerned with what that's going to look like, and if that develops, what are we doing with the traffic? Speaking to the point on growth, we all did something great together, I think, recently, and that was taking another look at our land development code when it came to the 7-Eleven and Homosassa. And that was kind of a, whoa, what happened moment, I think, for all of us, because, it wasn't sitting right on the body of water. And then we realized, about the aquifer, and I learned the word karst, and we all decided we need to make an immediate change in the land development code, which I think was very successful. But in doing that, I have heard from many of you, when we're sitting on the dais, concerns. And I think, we have a whole great growth and development team of people. We have an attorney. I would like this year and into the years to come for us to take a really good look at the LDC, and I think it should start with us and say, hey, these are some concerns that I'm getting from people, or some concerns that I have, and can we dig deeper to make sure we don't have any more of these, oh shoot, yeah, we probably shouldn't have a gas station there. And so, for example, some of my concerns are, we did a great thing for Crystal River, Homosassa, Chesapeake area, along with that 19 corridor and businesses, but how does that affect other places throughout the county, like closer to our lakes, or like we're doing a septic to sewer project in Cambridge Greens? Obviously, that's far away from bodies of water, but that was identified as being important. So do we need to implement that same sort of code in other places in the county? I don't know, but we have experts that could probably, get the answer for us. I have a concern about, as development goes, with our sidewalks. The Madam Attorney was gonna get me some language on that. For example, and of course my district, so forgive me for using a lot of those examples, Homosassa, the Walmart, 19 has a sidewalk, but why didn't we have them put a sidewalk down the Cardinal portion of that? And you don't think about those things until you have a problem. So across from Cardinal is a little housing development, and I met, when I was doing Meals on Wheels, a blind man there that literally got hit by a car on his little, I call it the little rascal, the little cart. And I wanted to get like a flashing light, maybe one of those things for people to cross, but we weren't allowed to do that because it doesn't connect to anything. There's no sidewalk there. So some of these development safety things, we shouldn't have to, the five of us, being so vigilant if an application becomes before us, they should just be in our LDC, right? So sidewalks was a concern. I've heard, especially from Commissioner Bays, and I would agree, when development comes, like to have some like signs, not like a whole sign pollution everywhere. I know when certain buildings are built in certain areas of Florida and then others, they look different. Gas stations, Walmarts, whatever it is. How do we get the best architectural details? They have different phases of those. You're laughing. Are you thinking the same thing? So I think we're on the same page, but I think if we can address as much as we can, and everyone needs some time to think about it, probably talk to citizens. They're so smart. They have all these good ideas. And let's see, when people are thinking about growth and development, what are they afraid of? What are we afraid of? Commissioner Bays, you sat up there one time and did not like that white vinyl fence and certain things, but why should you hash that out? Maybe we could just address that in the LDC. Why do we wait for something to come before us? So I just think maybe collectively, if you all are in agreement, we could just think about that, look at it, have our team of experts maybe make recommendations, and maybe we'll vote on some things in the future. Address Cardinal. Beautify Citrus was something that I had brought up last year, and thank you for so quickly implementing that. I probably complain to Steve every other month on 44, and granted, that's a state road, not our road, that I swear the mower just mows over the trash and makes it worse. So I'm going to keep complaining until they stop doing that. But our medians are often a mess. And I don't know if we need to do something different where they're not concrete, because when they're concrete, they're just a plethora of weeds. A little grass and flowers go a long way, so maybe that's something we can think about. I think a lot about not in my district, but where the central district where all that development's going. And that makes me think of the LDC. But, we have a little park right there on Crooked Branch, and I think Eric's here somewhere. It's more of a trailhead, it's listed. But with all that development coming there, and if people, and we're going to talk about sales tax, which I think years ago people were like, most of them, no. And I don't have enough people talking to me yet to make that determination, but I'm telling you, a lot more people are in my ear now going, when are you all going to at least get that on the ballot, which is very interesting, and not from people you normally think of, just average people that catch you, that think that would be a help. So when I think about that and other people coming, if it becomes more of a shopping, eating hub, maybe from Levy County or Denali from Marion County, we get these other people here, and they're spending their money here, it would be nice that little park could be something beautiful where people could take their coffee or their lunch. So just kind of thinking of the future as it comes, what do we want it to look like now? All of our parks, and I think I mentioned that last year, some upgrading with our signs, our directional signs within the county on county roads. I've already caught Marcelo, is he here? Nailed him about Halls River Road and all the sign pollution. So we could do better, and I thank you, Steve, because I know that that's kind of in your head too, as we're trying to get the right development here and the right people here. If it's a beautiful place that we nourish and take care of and respect, I think that sets the stage for those that come to visit us. And I think that's all I have for now.
I want to go to Commissioner Schleba next, if you're ready, but I want to say one comment about the medians with grasses and flowers. This is the Nature Coast, where nature and community thrive. I look forward every spring to the pink phlox. Yes. So surely there is more wildflowers that go in different seasons that we could look at throwing seed out there and letting nature do its work. Just a thought.
Nice.
Commissioner Schleba? Again, you want this or just What's on my list?
It's on your, whatever's on your mind. And did you give up because your card was up?
I did.
Okay,
But
I
I'll
did.
chime in later.
I just wanted to hit everybody once, and then we'll go to the card system if
You
that's
got
all
it.
right. I'm making this up as I go along.
Sales tax, valuable tool. I've been talking about this since the first day I was elected, 2020. And if, for those of you that don't know, sales tax is due today so that you don't get a $50 fine before 5. Paid it 35 years, just paid $86 of discretionary tax to the other counties that I collected that was above 6%. Again, I don't talk about it because, frankly, I'm frustrated with the people not understanding that tool. And again, said it how many times? You've heard it, sitting together 3 years. We're either the smartest county by not collecting discretionary sales tax, or we're the dumbest county because we're the only county that doesn't collect it. The only. And that's going to be up to some lobbying group. We can only educate, but it just gets my blood pressure up. Because one day, Tallahassee's going to say to us, yeah, we're not going to give you what you want because you don't use the tools in your toolbox. So I'll be done with that with sales tax. These ideas that Commissioner Bays took credit for, which good for you, you're a go-getter, but we've heard a lot of these probably for 20 years, and it's probably very, very frustrating to you that you brought up some of these ideas in 2010, and I'm glad to see that we're getting these things addressed. Government is slow and frustrating, but I want to talk about the only thing on that list that I think that we've talked about for 3 years is the aquatic protection plan. I'm not big on the chemicals. I'd like to see, but I understand why we do that. But I think we need to dig deeper into that. The county definitely needs to tell the story because I think that citizens don't really know, and there's so much misinformation, and we have to be the narrator of our story. So kudos for that. The Master Corridor Study, as you know, District 3 is prepared for the growth. We don't have tourism, we don't have water, but we do have land. I love the idea that the passion Commissioner Bays has put forward on the 491 evacuation route. If the state is telling us this is the evacuation route and we have so much, you saw it light up in District 3, how many homes are coming there, the commercial areas. If the state is saying this is our evacuation plan, we need to figure out how do we tap that bucket of money, because otherwise we're going to be in a world of trouble. And my district has 2 elementary schools with a possible 3rd elementary school, and if anybody understands that, that means I got the kids there. And we have parks that have not been updated, and the park master plan has been something I've been beating over and over. But if we're going to get the amount of homes that we're planning to get in District 3, we have to look at 20 years from now. Because as we know, government works very slow, and we need to have parks in District 3 that could also possibly bring a return of revenue into the county. So we might not be there now for tournament play or... And I have to give this to Commissioner Scott Carnahan. He was big on this on Central Ridge. Let's get some, football. And I have to reset my mindset about, okay, well, we don't have the accommodations today for tournaments. But in 20 years, we might need that. So let's not look at our parks as small. Let's look at it, what do we want in 20 years? And so I really would encourage this board to look at, you know, a sports tournament future for Citrus County. We could start with, you know, day tournaments, you know, football, I have girls, so I know Little League, but what do they call little football? I don't know. Pop Warner, thank you. And pickleball for you know, our adults. So I really, this is gonna be one of the things this year that I wanna talk about. I mean, I'm waiting a year for my pickleball courts and tennis courts in Beverly Hills. I think I wrote down March 1st, this is coming back. I have a lot of impact fees, and I would appreciate the support when I bring it forward, because we have shared impact fees, and then we have leftover district impact fees. And it's just sitting there and sitting there. Can we finally do something and move the ball forward with Beverly Hills, Central Ridge Parks, and get something for our children? And one thing that this last year you got our legislative asks from our planning session. I want to ask for workforce training from the state. That's on the governor's top hit list. And if we can get some workforce training, possibly out there at the Inverness, we might want to think about, if we're really thinking about the future, rebranding that too. Your district, but does it need to just be Inverness? Think of something that will set us apart, and because not everybody knows where Inverness is, but that could possibly be an area for workforce training. And Commissioner Bays brought up the, was it AMP? Is that what it's called? For the airlines, mechanics, aviation. But I also learned at FAC, which you know, had it in our interview together, I've been trying to get a piece of Space Force, Space Florida in Citrus County. I don't even care if we just manufacture a little bolt. But this past week at FAC, they said aerospace manufacturing, every county will be touched by that. 67 counties will have a piece of Space Florida in the manufacturing. So how do we do that? Frank, I mean, where is he? You know, I would like to learn how we move forward on that. I spoke to the lobbyists for Space Florida yesterday, and I speak to them every year. And they're going to put me in contact next week with somebody that, I forget his position, but that might help us. So maybe you could join me in that meeting. But, and then the final thing I have on my list, I've been working for a year. It's February, it's a year, with the chief, trying to get a baby box at one of the fire stations. And we would be the second county to have this. And it's at a fire station. It's triggered by if somebody wants to abandon their baby, instead of putting it in a dumpster or trash can, they go to the fire station. There's alarms, there's climate sensors, there's cameras, and it's been a year of just frustrating talking. Wasn't that your campaign thing in 10? Talk. A year of it. And I understand that there are conditions with, you know, liability and things like that. But if we could save one baby, it's worth it. And so those are the things that I would like to work on this year. And that's all I got, Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Slaybaugh, and I am fully on board with parks. And I think that the development forecast tool will help us quite a lot on that. And I know that we've gone to group our impact fee park funds specifically so we can do a big swing. And I think hopefully this board and future boards will all play nice in sharing all of that and figuring out very analytically, very objectively, where the growth is, where we're light on parks and so forth. So that master park plan would be great. I am also with you on economic development. I've been saying this over and over again, very much like you have, that this county is very well positioned for aviation and space businesses to be here because of our location, because it dips in as much as we do on the coast. And we have Port Citrus that we need to do something with. But I echo your comment, how do we get there? Is it enough to have an energetic new economic development director, or, and I know this just came up at ACC, Advanced Commissioner Training last week, about, they said, of course you have to have an economic development board. You have to have that kind of interactions. And I said, well, we talked about it before, but it kind of died on the vine because thought it was going to have to be in sunshine and all that. So if Frank, Frank's there you are, Frank's the man in charge on that, along with Steve, of course. And so if there's anything that you guys need from this board, I would encourage you to figure that out, what the micro strategic plan is for economic development. So if you need something, let us know, because we definitely, you hear what we want to happen here. My big thing, other than talking about some of the items that I already talked about, is sales tax. So I actually have a plan to try to bring this in for as much of a landing as the commission can do, because obviously this goes to the polls for voter reasons. We are 5 voices as simply residents in the county, but we're also 5 leadership voices. So theoretically, a direction that we go may help push this along on the private side. So number one, I would like a consensus of who is for putting that forward on the 26th ballot. Commissioner Finnegan.
Sales tax?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always for putting something on the ballot. I think the citizens should decide, but I would love to have us put it out there and get huge community feedback. Like where's the community? If they feel strongly one way or the other, could we have them something on our website where they could fill out a little thing, log here, yes, no, and different comments. I mean, we're doing all this great communication stuff, so I think
We are very restricted on a lot of that stuff, but yes, okay. So Commissioner Kennard, I have multiple questions. I'm going to go around. Commissioner Kennard?
Well, I think you're out in front of your skis a little bit.
I frequently am.
Asking.
It leads to fun wrecks.
Asking for a consensus on this yet when we don't know what it's going to be spent on.
That's the next round. I'm talking about in theory. Sorry.
So if there's a product brought forward, the right combination of initiatives that this money would be used for, then my support would be there. But if that combination is something that I disagree with, then I'm not going to support it.
Of course.
So I think that step one needs to be finding out what it is that the community would support. Maybe not necessarily what the 5 of us want, but what is that product that the community thinks is important? Is it school safety? Is it water quality? Is it, is it emergency services? Is it road resurfacing? Is it road expansion? I think I know there are a number of different things. Is it expanding the parks? What is it that that is important enough to the public that they would support it? And then at that point, then I think I would say, yeah, this is what they want. I'm on board.
Apparently, this was very clear in my head to try to get these answers done, and it's already off the rails.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's probably poor planning on my part. At this phase, what I'm trying to ask is as a commissioner, do you believe it is a good financial instrument to explore using? And just because it's 25%, basically 25% off of whatever we end up buying for our community is paid for by external to the county funders, right?
Yeah, I would say yes, it's a good tool for the right purposes,
Right.
purposes that the community would support.
Yeah, and for that, with the understanding that the community has to be behind it and they're the ones who get to vote it up or down.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Commissioner Bays.
I've liked this idea for a very long time, but I would caution, kind of like what Commissioner Kennard was saying, this takes I think it's been tried twice in this county, and it's always been done very hastily. And everywhere that it's been successful, it's a 2-year education process to the community. And I would agree with him, if we're gonna go down this path, number one, we need to decide what we would spend that money on and what the sunset date would look like, in order to get this out there and get the community buy-in, and we all know that we can't do that, so we're gonna have to find another avenue to educate the public. But, I'm gonna stick with Commissioner Kennard on the fact that it's a good tool, but based on what we would decide on how it would be spent. And getting some feedback from the citizens.
Commissioner Schleybaugh?
I think that, trying to find a polite way to say this. I think that if you were asking me, would I support getting on the 2026 ballot? Yes, I would, because you would have 2 years, the community would have 2 years to educate, to find out what you're gonna spend it on, and find out if the citizens want this. But you can't find out if the citizens want this, because if you ask today, do you want this? No, I don't want another tax. So there has to be the education first, and then the choices of these are the things that we could do. And then put it out, because I'm always about, I would love half the stuff to go on the ballot that we choose, because no matter what we choose, there's 5 of us, somebody's gonna be pissed off. So in this case, the citizens really are gonna tell us, we want this. But it can't be, we wanna put it on 2026, we have to educate, which we can't. I mean, we can educate, we cannot advocate. So, but somebody from the community has to step forward and say, this is really important. And I think this could take us to the next level. Pennies for Pasco, they worked on that for 2 years. I talked in depth at the time to President Simpson about this. And he's like, Ruthie, come on, pennies for Pasco. And so, it's gonna be up to the citizens, but do we put on would we put on the communication plan? Hey, what do you think about this? We could do this, this, and this, instead of just saying, hey, would you like it on the ballot? So, long story short, yes, but educate.
Okay. So the reason I was trying to push for that, we all think it's a good financial instrument to use, right? The reason I was trying to push for that is that Ruthie's been talking about it, and I was right there with her for several years now, that it's just silly to be spending our money in surrounding counties where we're helping pay for their stuff, and when they come to our county, they're not helping pay for our stuff. And so there's no competitive disadvantage, from having a lesser, coming up to the same level tax as next door. There is no competitive disadvantage.
Oh, Chairman, can I interrupt you? I'm so
Of course.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I do want to say this. When I was driving by the Target with the walls up, I said, oh, look, Target's ready. No additional discretionary sales tax. We're going to get a lot of people coming to use our Target because they don't have to pay that penny, penny and a half, 2 cents, because we're at 6, and they're going to be on our roads. Wow. And
So-
don't think people won't drive here to that Target
Well,
to
it-
save that money.
In
Yeah.
other words, it is a competitive advantage, but the problem is that there's no competitive advantage if you're giving something away for free. You're not actually
They're gonna
benefiting from the
come,
competitive
spend, they're gonna
advantage.
buy here.
Yes.
The only person that's gonna benefit is
Madam
Target.
Chair,
Yes.
I just pulled it up. We're leaving about $21 million on the table. I looked at Hernando. Theirs is 28 million, and Marion County is about 61 million.
And I ran the numbers for my 87-year-old mother back in 2019 and went through, and it would have cost her a $20 increase a year on her sales tax if we had 1 cent. $20. And when I said to her, Mom, would you pay $20 more to make sure you had this or that? And she's like, yeah. And she lived on a pension, you know. So you got to break that down too. So I'm sorry
So-
for the interruption, but I
Well,
wanted.
The reason I wanted to do that is because then I would also, I'm going to tee up someone up here with me to remind, so we've been talking about it for a while, and no one has ever brought it forward as an agenda item. But what has to happen first? Do we bring it forward as an official agenda item, or does the private sector have to be formed first, the private group? What is the order of go on this? Does anybody know
I
that?
would say, let's get it into our communications plan and educate.
So my next question, and this is from the point of view of being a resident, this is very important, because I don't want anyone to think that we are putting out there what we're going to, advocate for. From the point of view of being a resident, do you want to see a commensurate reduction on your ad valorem? In other words, are we taking how we fund something right now and moving it into sales tax, okay, but reducing ad valorem over here? Or are you open to something new and aspirational, which on my list would be things like the what we were talking about, a multi-purpose use building next to the Suncoast. High on my list is adding to our park funds where nature and community thrive. There's nothing more nature and community than parks. There's also conservation lands, things like buying the Ozello property, and we could pick one in every district pretty easily that would be wetlands that to try to preserve. We already have 50% of our vista will never, I say vista because it's both land and water, but 50% of our vista will never be developed. But I think we could use more. If it's truly environmentally sensitive areas, we should add to that. So personally speaking, as a citizen, I'm good with aspirational. But as a commissioner, I'm certainly not comfortable with saying, putting it out there that that's what I want to advocate for, because we need to let the people speak about what they're willing to do. Are they willing to do a sales tax? And if so, does it need to take money off their ad valorem, or do they want something more aspirational? So, would anybody like to speak on that? And we'll go to the card system now. So there you are.
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. I hear about parks, I hear about buying lands, I hear about a number of things, or taking it off of the taxes. We have greater needs than we have dollars. And I think we're really missing opportunities. We implemented a fifth penny in tourism for capital. And as opposed to nickeling and diming and spending our way every year and picking a project, we should use that opportunity to bond and do something big. So if that means you want to buy wetlands or you want to do other things with that, then to me, that's an opportunity that I think we're leaving on the table. When we talk about parks, we have impact fees. And we should be looking, next year is the year that we get to do that 4-year study again. And we should be in the middle talking about it today and saying that we're in consensus to send staff out to relook at that impact fee. And parks should be on that. Transportation, we had a very conservative number when we did this, and we're leaving money on the table there too. So I think before we start talking about using those pennies or a penny for things like that, we need to really dive in to know where we can get these dollars so that if we're going to get a 1 cent penny or one penny sales tax, that we're not wasting on something that we could have gotten the same thing in another category. And that's my fear. I only have two other things that I kind of glossed over earlier, but Inverness is the county seat. And we have a beautiful asset sitting there that's part of our history, and that's the old courthouse. And I think it needs a little love and attention. I think there's a couple of corners there that the city has landscaped interiorly. I think there's 2 corners that we could landscape to match that and just spruce it up and give it some love and attention that it deserves. We certainly don't want to see that deteriorate. I think it's one of the key components when you come into our town that we can have people identify with and make sure that it's cared and loved for. And then the other thing is, I know that we're knocking on the back door of space needs. We hear every year a constitutional officer comes to us and tells us that they need space. And that's a big ticket item. And I think it's time that we get really serious about it. I look in downtown Inverness and I think we've got the sheriff's office and we got the Stovall building and the clerk's got a building next to Publix. That's prime property, that's prime real estate. It should be on the tax rolls. And we're spending a lot, if you're just looking at cost of running employees around and fixing buildings and air conditioners and maintenance, what is that value of that dollar? It's not something we're gonna get to that any of us will ever stand under the shade of the tree, but we have to talk about it and we have to plan for it. The sheriff said he's going to need a new garage space. The laundry list is long. The judges need space. Everybody needs space. But we've got to start to really hone in on this and look at it and make sure that we're doing the best that we can and not just putting lipstick on a pig. So, and then I think Commissioner Finnegan, I know you're on the workforce board. Don't you do something else like with Early Learning Coalition? Or I think one of the biggest things that we're missing, we need childcare. People don't go to work because they don't have childcare. And I don't know how we facilitate that. I don't know if that's our role, but I think we need to talk about it because it is really a big problem. That's all I got.
Just to bring this back to sales tax, if we could.
I think you put it on your agenda item, and we have a discussion about what we would use it for.
Yeah, and to your point, obviously, I was just throwing out ideas for things that are aspirational. Clearly, if there's other funding mechanisms that can only be used for that, like park impact fees, and they are sufficient, okay, then obviously that would be a non-starter. But we've been told, I believe all of us have heard this over and over again, that it has to be something that really engages not just the brain, but very much the heart of the citizens that they really want. And so we keep hearing about so much growth, and so land preservation and parks obviously might be something that would engage their interest as we try to do our doggonest to remain the nature coast as in the face of all of this growth. Would anybody like to speak specifically on sales tax ideas?
Yeah. I think if you introduce it right now, it's dead on arrival. The biggest headwinds out there in the public right now are that we face as a board is that this board just hit the public with a massive property tax increase. Those are the headwinds, like hurricane force strength winds. We have to demonstrate as a board, after they've been hit with this, financial responsibility, that things are getting done with that money. Things are happening. That money is being spent in a responsible manner. We've got to prove that first. If you throw out there right now, hey, we're considering the idea of an additional tax, I'm telling you, the pitchforks are coming out. It's not the right time. It's not the right approach. you've got to have, not the last time, the time before when this idea, last time this idea was floated was by the school board. I think they floated a 1/2 cent sales tax increase and it fell. The time before that, nearly all of the elected officials for the county were on board, and then the dominoes started falling and it failed then as well. Right now, we don't have 100% of our board on board with this idea. I think what I would like to see before we wrap up the meeting today is what are the big picture items that we need to get accomplished. Certainly, we need to have a significant conversation about space needs. The corridor study, I think there's, I know there's some data, some information already with the MPO that the MPO has paid for to show what roads are going to need the most, what roads need the most attention now for increasing capacity, and which ones are forecast to need the increased capacity. I think those are the big issues we need to deal with. I'm sitting here, I mean, we've opened a lot of different boxes today, and I think gone down some different rabbit trails that I don't know that necessarily help us come to 3 or 4 major bullet points that we need to leave here with today. People are concerned about growth. They're concerned about transportation. We know what the space needs are. The judges are looking for space. Yesterday, we've started a discussion about them taking our floor at the courthouse. There was some discussion about the Adams building. I was actually asked about that yesterday. If we're still considering that, I said I have no idea. The board voted to give Steve the authority to begin discussions with the City of Inverness about us moving over there. I don't know what the status of that is. I think those are the bigger picture items that we've got to show first before we regain some credibility, I think, with the public.
Commissioner Finnegan?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to clarify because you had asked me first about the sales tax, but it seemed like you wanted quick answers to go around, and that's not happening.
Which didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So to clarify, and I still, if the public wanted something, why would I not allow it to go on the ballot for them to vote? But in getting there, I don't think it's going to get there for a new project. I do think it would have to have a sunset on it. I think what gets it there and why when the people talk to me about the sales tax, it's not for additional projects or added money, it's to alleviate the pain. And, Commissioner Kennard had said that, that's, what did you say, the headwinds of the tax. That's why I wanted to clarify that. That is all I hear also. So when the conversation's generated and it goes into, well, what's the what are the county commissioners doing about the sales tax? It's not to go, hey, because some parks would be nice, or if we could get XYZ done, it's alleviate the pain. You all want to get money from somewhere else. Help us because we don't want the burden that the commissioners just put us under. So, if there's any reaching out to the community and there's any seeing what they want to happen, or if they are even considering voting yes, I think the only thing that gets us there is helping them alleviate the tax burden for them at this point. I said it before at the budget hearing, and why I didn't vote for it is because the price of everything has went up exponentially. So, and then so did the property taxes on top of that. And it feels like a heavy burden. It is pain, and we need to somehow alleviate that for our people.
So that's the reason I brought up sales tax altogether, was simply to have that discussion because it has not happened yet. And again, I was not advocating for one direction or the other. I just wanted to have that discussion because I am listening to people who, I worked Manatee Festival last weekend, And I had at least half dozen people ask me, when the heck are you gonna put sales tax forward? You need to do that, you know? And so I'm listening to people saying that they want the sales tax and they're wondering why we haven't brought that forward to the voting public, you know, to let them decide. So, are there any other comments on sales tax? And then we can move on to, some of the more, exactly what our list is, because we've got 1 hour left. Seeing none? Veronica, do you want to lead this, or Steve? You've heard a lot of stuff.
Or just, I think she's writing down what she's hearing.
Okay. Okay.
So the first thing I heard you guys say is evaluate, explore the local option sales tax implementation. So look at the steps needed, look at the purpose, and then come back with that information.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when you bring that information back, I'd really like to have the information from Florida Tax Watch
Mm-hmm.
presented at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great benchmark for us to look at how we compare with other places across the state. We keep talking about how bad we are in taxes, and we weren't actually are
We're
in the
not.
lower third.
I think she has a traveling microphone now, Amy? Yes. I think she has a traveling microphone now.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. You can have this one if it's easier for you.
Commissioner Schleba.
I just want to address Commissioner Kennard's comment that with the massive tax increase, we're still in the bottom third of the state of Florida. And yes, we all are taxpayers, and we all are feeling that pinch, but it is our responsibility to pay our bills. And I've had a lot of people, a lot of citizens say, you know, I'm okay with the $75 increase or the $100 increase, you know, if it's going to get my road paved. And which ties into, let's tell the story where this money is going. Because we can't keep being the cheapest in the state of Florida, but then expecting all the services that they want.
Well said. Okay, so what else do we have on the list, Veronica?
The next two that I identified as priorities for you guys would be conducting the space needs analysis and conducting a master corridor study.
Mhm.
Would you guys like to consider implementing the development forecast tool as its own independent goal, or would you like to see that included in the pursuit of the master corridor study?
It's, the development forecast is going to be used for everything, not just corridors.
It's standalone.
Do you want a
Yeah,
standalone?
it's a standalone.
Sounds good. Mic drop, yes.
Nice, you had to go there.
Pretty writing.
Chairman,
Yes.
is it possible to also have on the communication plan an explanation of impact fees? I am surprised at how many citizens say to me, you can't keep charging me an impact fee. It's a one-time fee, and I think that would be part of a good communication tool to explain. When you build a house, you got a one-time fee, you are putting an impact on the county, and you're putting a footprint, so you have to, it's part of growth. But I am always surprised when somebody says, stop charging me impact fees.
I've never actually heard that.
Oh,
We're also gonna look at, gas tax too, that's another, which we're
Oh,
fixing to launch, and
that's
what we're
true.
hoping to do with the communications, is actually have like table talk, or we're actually gonna have, videos and things like that. I hear we actually have a really, really good program, I think, on the gas tax, that we evaluated all the counties in the region. And a lot of people think because our gas is higher, sometimes it's because that's not, obviously, I think there's less competition here, with some of these areas that obviously I think could help once we get, more of that commercial activity. But all those are just communication, that we kind of gotta find the best ways, best platforms to get, tell the story, and get that to the public, tell the public.
Well, the big one that I hear all the time is stormwater. That definitely needs to be part of the communications, because they, I don't have any stormwater, so why do I pay it? Kind of situation.
These are all, Mike's taking notes now, but these are all important ones we need to roll out in 2024.
In terms of the land development code, looking at that, one of the things that I would like to definitely take a look at various aspects that have to do with preserving the nature coast. For example, I asked Eric Landon for our current tree ordinances and things like that to try to preserve as many. And I do understand development that, even if you try to save the trees, a lot of times development will end up killing them because they compress the roots or whatnot. So I understand that it's very difficult sometimes to save them, but anything that we can do to limit the destruction of very old growth trees, heritage trees, and or require them to replace with very large specimens to replace them would be welcome, I think. Yes. Don't drop it.
Be very careful. The other thing, if we're back to mentioning some concerns with LDC, something else I want clarification on, I haven't received it yet, was stormwater. Because I thought, and maybe incorrectly so, before one could get a building permit, that there needed to be stormwater in place, but then I was told, I think that's just for coastal regions. Did you check on that? Is it just for coastal?
It's waterfront.
So you have some experience with that going awry. If we had a plan for stormwater for each house, maybe we wouldn't be in a pickle in the future. And that's why I said some of these issues that we're dealing with now, maybe we could address those in the land development code. So for the powers that be out there, maybe a drainage solution before permitting may solve some of those issues. So maybe we could look at that also. You're not understanding? I'll spell it out.
No, I mean, a proper development typically has all that done, so.
Well, not everything's a proper development.
Yes, I'm aware of that based on my district. By the way, if anybody wants to trade districts, I'm good with it.
So in the future, someone else might
I'm kidding,
want
guys,
to,
it's just because of Inverness
by
Village is
right,
for.
build a house somewhere, and then a lot of people might want to build those somewhere, but each of those don't have the proper drainage. So when everyone keeps filling in, then there's a problem.
Steve, any ideas on that?
I don't, obviously, we'll look at all those things, and get with our subject matter experts, our staff, and. see what we
And
can
that
do.
was my whole
Yeah,
point
I
about
think we
this.
can
The
do that.
five of
Yeah.
us aren't,
We can do that.
we don't have degrees in that, we don't do this every day, but we have a team of people that do. So if we just have a concern, I'm sure they're ready and waiting to vet some of these things out and to make our code stronger, possibly for future development.
There's some, best practices that we can look at in other communities that have dealt with these issues too, that we can look at.
Commissioner
Chair?
Kennard?
I'm a little concerned about this. I'm not in opposition, but I'm a little bit concerned that we're starting to tread even deeper into private property rights, or their development rights, and properties that are not waterfront properties, forcing them to have these dry DRAs in their yard, or engineered stormwater plans were driving up the cost of constructing a private residence. And I think that that is the idea, you know, handling the stormwater is the idea behind our impervious surface ratio, so that there is enough pervious surface on the piece of property to handle the stormwater, to handle their rainwater. So I would be very concerned about implementing new, making it more restrictive to build on non-waterfront properties.
Yeah, waterfront is just so critical because it's right there.
And that's why we need to talk about
Yeah,
this, because we wouldn't want to do that. But, so I've seen some of this in Sugar Mill. I wouldn't want, you have had a house wherever, not on waterfront, and then I build above you, and then when it rains, now everything goes into your yard. And right, we need to be careful. Everyone can't have some swale in their yard, but I don't know what the answer to that is. We just, you know, to make sure that I'm not impeding on your property rights. And maybe we already addressed that, and I'm not the expert in our land
I
development.
think Madam Attorney wants to weigh in.
I did the thing.
Yay!
Did y'all see that? I kind of noticed that I might have gotten a sideways look from Ms. Katu when I said something about the stormwater permit. So if I said something wrong, would you correct me now? Oh, I was good. Okay, it wasn't a sideways look.
That was from Kennard.
Well, he always gives me sideways looks. I thought that's how he always looked.
And I'm not pushing or advocating to add something change. I just think this is the place, we're supposed to openly talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, right, if the fix causes more harm than good, we don't wanna do that.
May I?
I'm looking at the list, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to chuckle because Commissioner Kennard knows I just got caught personally in this issue, so. He laughed.
Yeah,
As you guys were
I have
having these
concerns about it.
discussions.
What's that?
As you guys were having that discussion, I think the best way to encapsulate all of the items of interest and development would be to just first start with reviewing current existing LDC protections, presenting that to you to make any determinations about maybe other protections that are missing or adjustments to the ones that are currently there. Is that pretty close to what you guys were discussing?
I'm sorry, I was reading your list.
Oh, you're okay. We're first gonna start with reviewing LDC protections. We're not gonna start rewriting or doing any major initiatives. First, there's gonna be a review, and then we'll present that information to you
A
guys.
review, and then if commissioners have concerns, like I had mentioned, like sidewalks and drainage, but maybe that's not a good idea. Just, these are thoughts, random thoughts in our heads to make sure that, I want nicer architectural details, things like that. Are there things that we could do? No changing, no anything, just maybe bring that back and see where everything falls. And maybe, if they're listening, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, yes, you might improve this, but here's all the problems you could create, and this is why we don't have it now.
The law of unintended consequences. Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, one less comment, hopefully, on stormwater from me. Commissioner Bays brought up the idea of regional drainage. If we're going to look at changes to the LDC, I would like to see us, rather than county initiated regional drainage projects, maybe look at ways to incentivize abutting properties to do a regional drainage project. Or if not incentivizing it, removing barriers to abutting properties, whether it's 2 or 3 or 6 properties working together to do a regional drainage project. I would think that would be, I would like to see that happen, less government involvement in that happening, other than, yes, you can do this, here are the things that need to be done, and they can work together on that and keeps the county out of it.
I love that idea.
I think that in the last 45 minutes of this meeting, I would like to see us kind of drill down and come up with, 3 or 4. I mean, it's your meeting, but I think we've got to have, what are the priorities? For me, the corridor study's critically important, figuring, getting that down and what that looks like, having more discussion about that. The space needs, that's critical. Those are high-level items that I think we need to be having some discussion about, how we're going to move forward with that this year. The other stuff, not that it's not important, but as you bring this thing in for a landing over the next 45 minutes here, what is our plan going forward, as opposed to, having, these are our top 32 priorities,
A lot of those are basically that, and I would say from a strategic planning standpoint, the bottom 4 are all critical decades out kind of thinking, because that development forecast tool is going to help inform the 5-year financial plan, the space needs analysis, and the master corridor study. And somewhere in there is the continuing thing that's already on the list, which is the park master plan. So I agree with you that those 4 are the really long ball thinking that we need to be doing right now. The others, I do think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We need to keep working on Inverness Business Park. The communication plan is already well underway. Aquatic protection kind of goes hand in hand with looking at the LDC and other aspects of Nature Coast, things like trees that I brought up. That's more execution of strategic plan, but I think that the staff is, that's not too much. Veronica, you just took away the first list. Was there anything that I missed on that?
I was just going to reprioritize it for you guys.
Yeah, okay, a lot of that, will that stick to the wall or no?
Yes.
A lot of the smaller items just sort of fall out underneath there. But that's just my personal opinion as a commissioner, not as chair, that from a strategy standpoint, those bottom 4 are very, very good point, very long ball thinking, that we absolutely have to keep our eye on that ball. But I personally, and Steve, I mean, are we asking too much to have these other items that are more execution?
Yeah, I think, what helped me out is just, I think what Commissioner Kennard had said. Obviously, it looks like number 2 and 3, there's interest in that. That's helpful. Where it's, the space needs, that's a big deal. What I found out about, looking at space in this county was I didn't realize you had 100 buildings, actually, which is a lot of buildings. And also you want to look, the priority is the judges, but other things. So we need to look at that a little more comprehensive. So also at play is the Adams Building. Obviously, I've had good discussions with the city, but there's a lot of moving parts to that. So I really want to see this come in for a landing in 2024 or before that. So that would be very helpful to make sure that we're really all focused on that. So obviously that 2 and 3, if we can check that off and get consensus, those 2 are very, I think, critically important to move forward.
I would say it's those 4.
Yeah,
The
needs to be-
financial.
Oh, and that's
For my
important, yeah.
purposes, it's
Yeah.
the on the old list, the bottom 4.
Yeah.
And financial plan also needs to be funding sources that we had the study on last year, looking at moving things around, not additional taxes, but changing how we fund things.
And that development forecast tool's really, really important going forward with facilities and buildings and all these things, with the high growth and things like that. There's a way to precision kind of going into that. I think that'll be very helpful, to be able to try to have that and implement. I'm confident we can do that in 2024, create some type of tool based on what we're already doing with GIS and others.
Is there anything on that list as CEO of the county? Is there anything on that list that
The other
doesn't
thing,
fit
which I think
within
is,
this year?
if you can have it on the list, or if I have a consensus, what Commissioner Bay says, I believe that's an amazing asset. The historic courthouse, I think there's a lot of things we
Yeah.
can do there, but that's something I think, management in progress I can do. I think I can bring that back to the board. But I think that's an important asset that needs a little TLC. I've had an opportunity to be in that building and tour it, activities, but I think that's really a shining star that we have. It's already here as a shining star, but I think that's a focal point. It's actually on our seal. I mean, it's everywhere. So I think there's an opportunity to partner with the city of Inverness too. I've had some conversation with them to kind of work together on lighting and some other things. I think it's not a big lift, but obviously I want to make sure I have consensus of all five of you, going forward on that kind of initiative. But I don't think we're talking, a lot of funding or a lot of F-bomb. I think there's grants and things like that we can do, but I think that's something that needs to take place.
Thank you. Is there anything on the list that any commissioner is against?
I have my card up.
Oh, both of you do. My apologies.
3 of us. First, Commissioner Kennard, I zoned out when you started speaking.
Thanks.
Did you say?
But he's brilliant.
Oh, no. Did you say you're for regional retention? Drainage?
If it's handled between private parties, abutting properties,
Thank you.
not county initiated.
Thank you. Brilliant. And with the LDC, we do look at that constantly. The problem is, and Commissioner Kennard brought this up, we like to think that we as property owners have our rights, but we all know that's not true. Government's going to come in and do what they will. But so it is a fine line on how much we dig into the LDC, but, and then as far as the list and honing down what we want, 2 years ago, I walked the historical courthouse. We have to put money into that. I think when we look at the warrants every other week, how much we pay for 100 buildings, we do not need to add another building to our repertoire. We do not need that. And we have the historical building that has a courthouse that we could actually have meetings 2 times a month. So we need to start looking at the buildings we have. I agree with both these commissioners that just in the light bill alone, the money we could save if we could get all the parties together and come up with a plan. So to me, that is if you want 5 key things, that would be mine.
Which of you was first? I think you've spoken most recently. Is it okay if I go with Bays? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bays.
To me, this is like, we're supposed to be doing a business plan is what we're supposed to be doing. And a business plan is always hinged on finances.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I don't know how else to say it. I do not know how you take a $400 million a year operation. It's the end of January, and we haven't even begun to talk about how we're gonna implement our budget October 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major lift, and I feel like we just cram it at the last minute and try to vote on something, not really having a full picture. So if there's one thing that's really important to me, we talked about it at the last meeting. I am very concerned. Our ad valorem tax revenue just caught up from 2008. We don't know if, we know we have things coming on to the tax rolls, but we also still have properties that are gonna come off, maybe for the Suncoast Parkway, for 41. In this master corridor study plan, you could potentially have other pieces of property that come off. We need to look at that 5-year forecast. We need to have some idea what our revenues and our expenses look like to be able to really fully analyze what we're voting on every year and know that we're gonna have the money for it. I think we're just.
So are you in agreement that the last 4 are pretty much the
Yeah.
40,000
for
foot
me,
view? Yes.
it's hard to make a decision. None of us in our business would make a decision unless we knew we had where the finances are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that 5-year plan to me is like the number one paramount thing that I think we need to be talking about.
Well, Commissioner Kennard had identified the space needs in the master corridor, and I said, the development forecast tool will inform those two, but also the 5-year financial plan, which is the funding mechanism. Those four are all very much interwoven, to my mind. So apparently we have some consensus on that. Commissioner Kennard?
Yeah, I think when we're finished up here today, we should, if asked, we should all be able to name off the 4 or 5 things that are our top priorities. And from that, we should at least be able to give Steve some direction or some sense of urgency. You know, we've been talking about the space needs and needs for the judges for a long time, and nothing's happened. I think, anyway, I don't know how the conversations are going with the city of Inverness, but I would think that would be a relatively easy first step. And then we need to come up with a much larger plan on what we're gonna do with all of these different buildings that the county owns. You know, that moves into that. The corridor study, I think we need to figure out what, the next MPO board meeting that we go to, what is gonna be our ask of the MPO? They've already told us they can't do the corridor study for us, but they've got access to an awful lot of data, maybe what other communities have done these, and what has been their success, what groups that have done them for these communities have been successful at coming up with a workable plan. It used to be that this meeting in January, we would end up coming up with what were going to be our priorities, what are gonna be the asks, or making sure that everybody's on the same page when we go to Tallahassee next week. But what are we looking for as far as our appropriations request for this next year? Now's the time to start talking about that. If 491 North is going to be the big ask, that's a monster ask, but that's something we need to start having those conversations with our legislative delegation. Maybe we're up there next week and say, these are our priorities this year, but next year when we come, I want you to know what we're looking for. It's not gonna happen in a year. Maybe we break it up into phases, but understand this big ask is coming, and this is why. You start putting it in their ear now, you start putting it in the ear of the candidates running for that House seat. They need to hear what's coming their way. You talk about it now, you talk about it next year, eventually we start moving these big projects forward. So I'd like to make sure that we can all name, everybody's well aware of what the top priorities are of the county, and at least have some marching orders for Mr. Howard and staff when we leave here today.
Okay, Commissioner Finnegan?
You had asked a question of us, is there anything on there that shouldn't be on there? And, although everything's good ideas, we, to Commissioner Kennard's point, we have to be able to talk about and get behind these things, and I would agree, your bottom 4, I can talk about that, get on board with that. As we're working on some of these other things, I can talk about that. The only one that's on there that I don't, the baby boxes, because they're going to cost us money. I said cameras, alarms, whatever, and I have not heard that that's a problem. If it was, I'd want to take care of our babies, but I feel like I don't know how to explain spending money on a problem that I don't know that we have. So I don't know if that would be one of our major, when we're talking about our major priorities that we have to accomplish, and we're starting this year, I just don't really understand that one.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be on the major priorities. It was, you had asked what was on my list to get accomplished this year. That was at the very beginning of the conversation, and it made the list. But that's something I'm going to bring forward that I've been working on for a year. And at that time, you would get that information. But I agree, if you want to know today so that we can walk out of here what we need, the corridor and talking about 491 with our House and Senate and getting it in their ear for money, and also an ask of pursuing funds for workforce training so that we can get that ROR and actually get employees working for companies. Those would be my top two that I would like to walk out of here and say, this is what I would like to start talking to the state about and get information on.
I agree on the workforce training funding. That is, goes right in line with our larger strategic economic
Right.
development aspect.
And that's a big, big, big thing for our governor right now. And there is money there, so. And then the third thing would be space needs, and really figuring that out. Utilizing our buildings that we have and not adding to our buildings. I'm not for adding any more buildings.
I am with the broad brush of what Commissioner Bays talks about in terms of some of our properties are better suited to be on the tax rolls because they're, quite frankly, waterfront. And obviously, a lot of the being in the center of the county with a lot of our services makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the county seat is still Inverness. We'll meet there, et cetera. But there's a lot to be said for that. But we can't flip the switch and overnight do that. That has to be a very long-term plan to start getting organized and getting the efficiencies of scale, having where a lot of our offices are. So I am comfortable adding workforce training to the priority initiatives. Are you, Commissioner Finnegan and Commissioner Bays?
I mean, it's my understanding you're just asking for money, so it's fine.
Can add that to with a footnote that that's seeking funding,
Maybe just like a
which is really
legislative,
more our job than staff.
maybe even a legislative category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, more of a legislative category in that, you know, just unified.
I see no cards up. Is everybody good? Any closing thoughts? Mr. Howard, any closing thoughts? You're good?
We are going to work on this. We'll go back and obviously put some action steps together, talk with staff, and bring something back to you. Formalize, and the goal is to actually, in 2020, have this automated, and then obviously have dashboards at some point. And obviously, there's a lot of these, which you talked about, that are rollovers. Some of these are actually a little more complex than you'd think. Once you get into these discussions, and much like the buildings we talked about, we talked about a couple buildings. By the time we get done, we talk about 100 buildings. And we're talking about today, tomorrow, the future. So there's a lot of things, and I agree we need a comprehensive approach. Hope is not a plan. So I think this board and our staff out in the audience and citizens, as we continue to move this county forward, these are tough discussions to have. Like we know growth is coming, but if we proactively plan today, we'll be better prepared for tomorrow. So this is the hard work, what you're doing here today, and this makes it a lot easier for staff to have targets. Because we don't have a target, we're going to shoot at everything. I'm not a good shooter, but if I got a target to shoot at, I'm a little bit better at it. And I always say that strategic planning is like GPS. When you leave here, you go to Tallahassee, or wherever else you're going on vacations or legislative stuff. You got to put in your GPS or on your phone where you want to go. And sometimes it's going to reroute you. Sometimes it's going to take you down another road, but it increases your chances of getting it right. It doesn't replace management. But what you're doing here is forward thinking. But when you're executing, you're so much further ahead than other governments around the nation. You heard that today by our friends that Achieve It. Only about 10% ever get anything done. We're getting a lot done because you're focused, you're determined, and we're going to continue to measure this. So thank you for your input today, and I'm confident that our staff will push this forward on your behalf and our citizens. They deserve the very best, our citizens, and we'll ensure that they get the best added value. Thank you.
Excellent. Which of you had your card up first?
Madam Chairman, I want to be able to walk out of here today, because come September, I don't want to be surprised by, oh, this is our legislative ask. Because we have two things we need to accomplish here. We need to accomplish what are our priorities for staff to work on for this coming year, and what are we going to be asking for in September? Because, so, if we can get a consensus, but I would like to ask for the 491, really have a discussion with them. How do you want to handle this? You've made this an evacuation route. I've got a tremendous amount of growth in my district, and I also wanted to, ask for the workforce training. And I would like to hear from different commissioners what they want for their district, so that come September, we're not, wait, why are we asking for that? Where did that happen? Oh, well, that we got that from your strategic plan in January. So I think that's very important. So those are the two things I want to ask. And as far as priority initiatives, when we walk out of here, I agree with you. The bottom four, they kind of all blend together as far as what we've got. But a space need analysis would be what I would see as a priority.
Okay. Commissioner Bays?
It's really nothing to do with this, but I think it would be helpful. I know we have a lobbyist, but are we getting any kind of reports that tells us what's moving through the legislature, what's potential to be have an impact on our county? If so, I know Monday I sat in the courthouse for about 5 hours and looked at all the legislative stuff that's coming across, and was kind of shooting it off to you and saying, can we figure out what impacts some of these could potentially have on our county? But I would think that would be something that maybe our lobbyists could, tell us how things are moving through, what they think is going to get pushed through, and what financial impacts or other impacts it could potentially have on our county.
I'll follow up with our lobbyists.
Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. I know that we have a county attorney conference call once a month, and our legislative contact for FACA, which is the Florida Association of County Attorneys, puts together a list of all of the bills that might impact the county. I don't know if they do that, the county manager's side of it too, but I'd be happy to forward that list to y'all after. We just had it on
I do kind
Friday.
of get that list, but these homestead exemptions, I mean, if they did pass, what would be the impact to our revenue? And what's the likelihood of that passing? Should we be worried about it? Should we be, making noise about it? Should we be going up and testifying before a committee? I'm not. I read these things, but they just seem to be dying on the vine after reading them and not really getting a lot of information. Commissioner Kennard, I know that they've been working on that resiliency plan over in Crystal River. I sent it off the other day to Lisa Moore about there's a bill going through on saltwater intrusion on the vulnerability assessments. So I'm like, hey, what do you know about this? I know you're working hard and diligent on this, but what's going on? Do you think this applies to your programs and what you're doing over there? And those are the things that I think we should get some feedback on. We need to know if these have implications to us, and should we be having a voice in front of these committees and saying what we want out of them.
I would think, am I chiming in? I would think, certainly it's not going to be all encompassing, but I think it would be close if we look at the bills, maybe rather than us trying to go through it or charging our lobbyists to go through the many bills that get filed, because quite frankly, very few of them are going to make it through the gauntlet. Maybe we look at what bills the FAC is following, and the Small County Coalition, which ones they're most interested in. I'm sure that they have a watch list. I'm sure that both of them have a watch list, like the county attorneys do, county managers group does as well. And then at that point, tell our lobbyists, can you keep us updated on any movement here? any horsepower behind these particular bills. We can obviously have a public conversation at our meetings about, maybe that's part of our agenda every meeting, and say, these are the bills right now in the legislature that are of concern, and then we can reach out to our legislative delegation, we can reach out to our lobbyists and find out, do we need to be up there at least raising our hand in a committee meeting and saying, we oppose this, or we support this, or, getting clarification on the bill from either a representative or a senator, what version of this bill is likely to survive the committee. I had that conversation with Representative Masula last year on a bill the FAC was very concerned about. And ultimately, he had the bill sponsor on the phone, and we got clarification on it. And the bill sponsor said, look, this was a casting a big net. If any of it makes it through committee, we're likely to end up with this little piece of it. And so it was much less of a concern than at that point. But maybe something like that could be part. It's a great idea.
And these,
Yeah.
this is where these came from. These
Yeah.
are Small County Coalition and the FAC concerns, and that's the one that I kind of sent out. Now, that is my suggestion, is
Yeah.
that we kind of, look at these, identify if we think if they could be an issue, or maybe we should just be asking our lobbyists, are they an issue for us? And if they are, should we be really monitoring them on a
Yeah.
much closer basis?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we'll come up with something that'll take care of it.
May want to, I don't know if 7 needs to be A, B instead because it's a legislative thing, but add 491 widening to legislative ideas for, and you said by district, so obviously 41 is still a big concern in my district. 41 widening. And I was talking about too far the first time I was up there in Tallahassee, and they got that initial funding, and I agree that we need to, I've had several meetings with them, if they need any hand-holding getting that money implemented. I think Mr. Howard, they're moving on that now? They got it figured out through the permit?
That was my understanding, yeah. So.
Yeah, because I would like continued funding on that, of course. But they need to get through this first pot of money before we can go and ask for more. But all of our waters need restoration. Is there anything else to add to legislative agenda?
For this year or?
No, next year. This is, well, you said yourself that you start having early conversations this year. We're done with our official requests for this budget cycle.
Okay. My first request would be that we've all got our priorities in order for when we go up there next week.
Right.
And we're all given the same priorities in the same order, so that there's no confusion, and hopefully our legislative delegation, our lobbyists, can bring home the bacon. As far as next year goes, I think certainly 491 is a big ask, and we need to start bringing that to their attention.
But that's as a subtext to the list for this year.
Yeah.
Because this year's the priority, and then we say, and by the way.
Yeah, we need to get these things taken care of. Next year, we're going to, our ask is going to be to increase the capacity of the evacuation route that you've posted on it, and help us out with that.
Perfect.
Now, naturally, the river cleanups, that needs to be an ask. They continue, they're carrying the lantern on that, if you will. Save Crystal River is, and the Homosassa River Restoration Project. But both of them, I think we need to make sure that we have got our support behind them when they're up there. It doesn't need to be our ask, but I think our legislators, DEP, need to understand that we're supporting those projects. The Lakes project, too far, I absolutely support that. But again, we need to make sure that they're getting through this pot of money that they've gotten so far. If they need help from the county in doing that, then we should be right there figuring out what we can use, our resources, our personnel, to help them keep that project moving in a positive way so that they can go to Tallahassee and ask for more money, be able to show what they've used the money for and what they've accomplished with it. Beyond supporting those river restoration projects, a lot will depend on, or from my standpoint anyway, a lot will depend on what kind of funding we get, what kind of commitment we get to funding the multi-purpose path down Halls River Road. It doesn't look like, from what I see in here, that the time schedule for completion of the first phase of the Barge Canal Boat Ramp, that we're going to be in any position to be asking for additional funding for that next year. But certainly, if we get full funding for the multi-purpose path, then that goes to the side, and then it's up to DOT to get it built, and we can figure out what other asks there would be. But if they don't fully fund the remaining costs of that path, then I think that needs to be right there at the top of our list next year again. Say, we need to get this path done. They've put money into it. We put money into it. Let's get it completed.
We have just a couple more minutes. Does anyone else want to bring anything up for next year's legislative ask? Everybody's clear that we're going to be lobbying for this year, but have it in the back of our head, any really big asks for next year that we might want to mention.
Chair, if I may.
Yes,
We will have packets prepared for each of you to take up to Tallahassee.
thank you.
What's your ask for your district for next year?
The airport.
Okay. And yours is 41.
And Too Far, but only if Too Far spends their money, which I don't think they will by next year.
I was gonna say maybe we could create like a 2025 ask. We'll have that in their packet as well. We'll make sure we copy all this off. Yeah.
I think Commissioner Finnegan.
I
so-
think Commissioner Kennard covered my district well, so.
Didn't mean to.
That's okay.
So
It all
that,
kind of rolls together.
Yeah.
what was it?
The rivers and the multi-purpose path.
Okay, perfect. And then the airport.
Does Chaz need any help at all? Chazowitska River? I have kayaked on there a few times, and it
Yes,
doesn't seem
I've-
to be in quite this dire circumstance as some of the other rivers.
It doesn't, and I've not heard anything from the people of Chazowitska except for the speed issues down that road. I hear a lot about that, but I'm a little limited about what I can help with their speed issues, but I have been in talks with the sheriff's office about that, so.
Okay.
But thank
Excellent.
you for remembering Chaz.
It's a beautiful river.
Yes, thank you.
Ozello? Speak to Commissioner Kennard about that one.
Well, I am going to have a conversation with Representative Masulo next week while we're up there to start introducing the idea of using resiliency money to rebuild the supportive structures along that road. That road needs to be repaved, but again, it doesn't make sense until we can stabilize it. That's a big ticket item that it sounds like there's a pretty big pool of money out there, pretty big pot of money that could be used for that. So at least introduce the idea.
Good. Good.
Just on that note, and this is more directed to something today, but people have mentioned to me that I guess on the fringes going around those corners at the bridges, they're not being maintained, the grass height, and it's hard to see around the corner. So I've had a couple people say, can we get those mowed or get those weeds knocked down so that the sight line is better?
Makes sense.
Good to know. All right, any further comments? Everybody good? Very much appreciate everybody spending the afternoon with us and listening to us carry on. I think we've done some really good work, and last year was phenomenal, and I fully expect this year to outdo last year and what we achieved. So that's a little nod to the Achieve It guys in the audience. And with that, we are done.
Well done, Chair.